et bienvenue à Fikiri. So today we're going to do something a little different in honor of E3, which has just started up. For those of you who aren't video game nerds, that's a major press conference, like a en masse press conference for all sorts and kinds of video game companies. Like Sony's doing theirs tomorrow, where they'll talk about all the shiny new things they're bringing out. Final Fantasy 15 will be mentioned, and I think there's some sort of live stream going on for that. Looking forward to it. Nintendo's gonna go crazy with Zelda because they've got a new title coming out next year. That sort of thing. So, in honor of E3, I'm going to do the Nintendo book tag. This book tag was started by Sam of Sam's Nonsense. I got it from Kat over at Cattastic. I'll link them both below. That being said, let's get started with the video game extravaganza. So, first question is NES. What's a classic that you want to read? Now, I don't really like classics, but if there is one I do want to read, it's The Count of Monte Cristo. And I don't just want to read The Count of Monte Cristo. Oh no, I want to read it in the original, because Alexandre Dumas is a French speaker. Obviously, he's a French writer. I can read French. I want to read it in the original. Because why bother if you're not going to? Second one, Super Nintendo. What is a sequel that you like better than the original? So for this one, I'm going to go with Dragon Singer by Anne McCaffrey. Dragon Singer is the second book in a mini trilogy that's part of the Dragons of Pern series. So Dragon Singer follows Dragon Song, and after Dragon Singer you have Dragon Drums. Dragon Singer is really my favorite of the entire, well, not the entire series, but the entire mini-series that it's part of. It just improves so much on what Dragon Song lay out, and then Dragon Drums goes off on a wild goose chase, but yeah, I'll keep my Dragon Singer. It's really great. You get to learn more about the Bards of Pern, who are a special category. So it's Dragon Singer by Anne McCaffrey. You should read it. Okay, third question, Nintendo 64. What is a book that revolutionized the way you look at the world? This one was really hard for me because I don't really do books like that. I read them and they mean something to me, yes, but they don't really revolutionize the way I look at the world. So the closest one that I can come up with is Labyrinth by Kate Moss. Not because the book itself changed the way I looked at the world, but more because it introduced me to this little known language called Occitan, which is a French, it's not a French dialect, it's a language, a dialect that's spoken in southern France and is a dying language, essentially. It's in the stages of language, it's essentially a dying language. It's not dead yet, but it's getting there. And it really is important in literary history because it's the language the troubadour wrote in. It's beautiful language. I love it to death. But what's important about this language is that it's what introduced me to linguistics, and specifically sociolinguistics. And reading Labyrinth got me interested in this language, and then I had to write a couple years later a senior thesis for an honors college back at my university, the University of Mississippi to be precise, now that I'm no longer going there. But writing this thesis in sociolinguistics, which was a field I had never touched before because I was a French student, taught me that no, you don't want to be a French person. You want to be a linguistics student. You want to get your PhD in linguistics. So really, Labyrinth for me changed the entire course of my life. So even if the book itself didn't affect me that much, it's what opened doors for me that I never would have thought of. Okay, next question. The GameCube. What was a book that was really popular but you didn't actually like that much? For me, this would be The Fifth Wave by Rick Yancey. I just couldn't get into it. We didn't click. We didn't mesh. This is not how I like my sci-fi. So, The Fifth Wave. Not my thing. Our next question is The Wii. what is a new favorite book of yours? For me, this would have to be Dragon Sword and Wind Child, written in Japanese by Noriko Ogiwara and translated into English by Kathy Hirano. It's such an interesting read. Because the author is Japanese and was writing in Japanese for a Japanese audience, she took a lot of our Western ideas about fantasy and then applied them to not Japan exactly, but a Japanese cultural idea. She took a lot of her inspiration for the mythology behind it from the very, very basic stories of Shinto. She changed them, obviously, but the best comparison I can find is that her story is to Japan rather like Middle-earth is to England or Europe. So it's a great read. It will enlighten you so much about Japanese culture just by reading. This is what they come up with for their premier fantasy novel. Like, this one is considered a groundbreaking work of Japanese fantasy fiction. But it will help you learn more about Japan because of that. Then it's also just a really good story. Even if the characters are a little flat, to me it read more like a beginning mythos, so you don't get all the character depth because you're getting the story. And it's more about the story and the atmosphere than the individual characters. It's really good. I highly recommend it. Dragon Sword and Wind Child by Noriko Ogiwara. So next is Nintendo Power. What's your favorite graphic novel or one you just want to read? I can't pick. You can have both of them. So obviously I went with the Gotham Academy series. I can't pick. I just can't. If you want story and cohesive plotline over all of the books, like over all the chapters, so if you want a cohesive storyline throughout your book, then you really want Welcome to Gotham Academy, Volume 1. However, you really can't discount all of the mini stories that you find in Volume 2. Sure, they're not as joined together and a cohesive plot as you see in Welcome to Gotham Academy, but Calamity's little short stories, especially once you know why it went that route, are so good and you just can't let them go. Calamity has Shakespeare. Who can say no to Shakespeare? Especially when it's Macbeth, I ask you. I can't. Hi, my name is Ginny, and I'm a Shakespeare addict. And apparently it applies to my comic books too, so. Let's move on to the actual game section. Ooh, fun. So, let's start with Super Mario. Who's a character that you want to squish like a Goomba? First, I want to say I am really, really sorry about this. My top choice for this is Lila from A Darker Shade of Magic by V.E. Schwab. Don't get me wrong, I like the premise of A Darker Shade of Magic. I think there's a lot going for it. It's really interesting and unique, and I love the idea of the different Londons. And Kale's not bad. Then you meet Lila. And she won't go away. Lila is a problem for me. In my protagonists, I like it if they have some redeeming quality. It doesn't have to be a big redeeming quality. It could be that he likes fluffy bunnies, because I also like fluffy bunnies, and I can work with that. Lila doesn't have any redeeming qualities. None. Absolutely none. And she's not kind, she's not generous, she's made no demonstration of being a decent human being. She's made no demonstration of being a reasonably intelligent human being. She doesn't trust the people who know more about the situation she's in than she does. Calm. Okay. No. She does not work for me. I wish to squish her like a Goomba. Okay, our next question is The Legend of Zelda. What is a newer fantasy novel or series that you feel is a modern classic? For me, if you are looking for modern classic in fantasy fiction, look no further then The Pawn of Prophecy by David Eddings. It is book one of a quintet called the Belgariad, because reasons that I can't tell you without spoilers. But it is part of the Belgariad, which is already something of a classic in fantasy. Not a major one, but this series. The 5 books are Pawn of Prophecy, Queen of Sorcery, Castle of Wizardry, Magician's Gambit, and Enchanter's Endgame. And these 5 books are amazing. There's no getting around it. These are everything you want in a fantasy novel. Magic? We got that. You want creepy, not exactly human people? Well, they're not elves exactly, but how about mole people? We've got those. You want high fancy archaic language? We have that. You want relatively normal people language? We got that too. It is epic fantasy at its finest in the tradition of the actual medieval type epics that everybody's trying to harken back to when they write epic fantasy. So, Pawn of Prophecy, The Belgariad by David Eddings, or David and Lee Eddings for his later works. Yes, modern classic of fantasy, and you won't get any better. Next we have Samus Aran. This is what is a sci-fi novel that is your favorite or you want to read. For me, this has got to be my favorite sci-fi novel, which is A Beautiful Friendship by David Weber and Jane Lindskold. Now, this one is sort of a spin-off of David Weber's major series, which is an adult fiction series called the Honor Harrington series. This series is about Stephanie Harrington, who's actually the main character of that series' ancestor. It's complicated. But either way, Stephanie Harrington is a really great main character. She's really interesting and unique. And the tree cats are adorable, and I want one. That being said, this plays sci-fi as more scientific science. It's like you can actually sort of track the logic here. It's not good science, but it is reasonable science. It's science fiction a la Heinlein, which is like more realistic science being used here, except with hyperspeed overdrive and light speed and all that good stuff, as opposed to something like The Fifth Wave. Which, come to think of it, maybe why I didn't like The Fifth Wave. Huh. Okay, next one is Pokemon, gotta catch 'em all. Okay, seriously though, Pokemon. And this is what is a book cover or a series book cover that you want to collect them all. I don't really care about book covers. I mean, sure, if it's pretty, I'm more likely to read it and pick it up if I don't know anything about it, but book covers... So, for me, I guess the one I can really think of is the second edition of the Infernal Devices, the ones with the really nifty spines that you can put together and they make another picture. Yeah, I want those. The next question is Donkey Kong. What's a series or book with really original characters? For me, the Circle of Magic series by Tamara Pierce has a really unique cast of characters that are all pretty dang original. This is a group of 10-year-olds who aren't... They don't really fit any of the molds. I mean, you have the sweet girl, but she's also notorious for standing up for herself and her friends, and forcing you to do what she wants you to do, even if you don't want to, for your own good. Then you also have your thief, who doesn't really regret being a thief, but he's still a good person on the deep down. Then you have your plump girl who... Okay, your fat girl, who is actually really intelligent, really prickly, and she actually has realistic defense mechanisms. Then you have your... I don't want to call her African American because she's not African American, obviously. This is a fantasy series. But you have your... I don't want to say person of color. You have your dark-skinned... Best I can do. Your dark-skinned character who comes from a culture that's pretty different from the other three. And then you actually have a lesbian couple looking after them, which is a pretty diverse set of characters. I think you don't get much more original than these characters. So book 1 is Sandry's book if you're in the US. I forget what it's called in the UK. Realistically speaking, look for Sandry's book by Tamara Pierce online. Somebody will tell you what the actual title is. Either way, great book. I cannot stress this enough. It's a 4-part series. You have stateside, you have Sandry's book, Triss's book, Daja's book, Briar's book, after each of the main characters. And finally, Nintendo fandom. What are your favorite Nintendo games? So I'm slightly limited because I've only ever really played Nintendo on handheld consoles like my 3DS or way back in the day my Game Boy Color. But 2 series have really caught my eternal loyalty. Give me my Pokemon or give me my Zelda. Especially Ocarina of Time, which I'm really just now getting to play because it's the first time I've had 3DS and it's been out and So that was the Nintendo book tag. I hope you enjoyed it. Leave me comments down below. Let me know what you think of all these questions and what you would have put. Also, I hope you enjoy E3 and go watch stuff over there. Talk about E3, that's cool too. I will probably join you in fangirling over the pretty pictures. That's all for tonight. So thanks for watching. This is me signing off.